Okay, we are now live. A couple of minutes up to what we're going to be getting up to this evening. Welcome to Talking Con. Just a little bit of housekeeping. First and foremost, as always, I want to say thank you very much indeed to our Patreon supporters. They're rolling up on the screen right now. Let's actually get that a little bit bigger so people can see. We're coming up to the point of the month where I get my Patreon pay through it comes into my account. It basically allows me to keep doing what I do. As it happens this month, I did have the invoice come through from my hosting on the website. That's what this covers. Basically, it covers all the licenses and all the bits and pieces I do for the show. As always, a huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. In a way, for that, I do want to mention as well about the way that we support the Patreon supporters on this particular show. We have ourselves this live stream which goes out on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, to the one man and his dog on a string on that particular platform, YouTube, and also it's going out on the Patreon page as well. After half an hour, the live stream on all the platforms closes, and it will continue as an exclusive live stream for my Patreon supporters. It's from $2 a month. If you'd like to jump in and support us, of course, any way that we can take that support, we will. The audio version of this episode goes live tomorrow from 12 p.m. midday. I basically top and tail it, trim out a couple of the ums and ahs, and put that up on the SoundCloud, Spotify and iTunes. That's tomorrow from 12 midday. And then the complete episode gets uploaded again on Facebook and on YouTube on Wednesday at 12 p.m. GMT. But for tonight, first half an hour, it's going to be in the company of James Tynion IV, who, by the way, I did not ask before we went live how to pronounce his surname, because I'm an idiot. But there we go. But that's pretty much how the stream will go. As always, we do have, and I'm going to make sure that I've got the Facebook feed is public, because every once in a while it does kind of throw it private. So I'm going to make sure that that's public, so that all the comments coming in on that particular feed, by all means, any comments, any questions that you have for James, please do jump in, and anything that you want us to get into, we'll try and cover. We've got a bunch of people who are joining us already. It's a pleasure to have you along. Andrew English is watching from London. Michael P's joining us. Into the Blue Mister from sunny Wales. You've got sun down there? Good Lord, congratulations to you, sir. I think this is going to be a fun show. At the back end as well, we've got plenty of Comic-Con news we're going to get into, so stick around. This is going to be a fun episode, I think. As always, it's time to hit those opening credits. Every once in a while, I think to myself, I've made those too long. We're biting into precious interview time. What the hell am I doing? Welcome along to Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name's Leonard Sultana. I have my tea. I have a great guest who I'm going to bring on very shortly indeed, but just wanted to say thank you very much indeed to everyone who has joined in, and everyone who's been watching all our incidental episodes as well. We had a cracking show a couple of days ago in the middle of the week where we talked to Jeff Trexler, who's the new interim director of the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. It was probably the heaviest and most intense episode we've done on this particular show, but for me it was an important conversation to have. It's about the past, the present and the future of the CBLDF. I would really encourage you to go back and check out that episode, because there was some big stuff in there, and Jeff gave some encouraging noises. I mean, the man's a lawyer, yes, but that's the way it works. I think more he's coming at it more as a fan. So he's certainly someone to listen to, and I'm wishing all the best for the organisation. We also had we've had some great incidental episodes, some more coming up as well. Mike Hawthorne is going to be on the guest on next Saturday's show. And then tomorrow we're going to be talking to the guys behind a Kickstarter, which I'm very excited about. Stephen Mooney and also Declan Sharvey, who's doing one of the backup stories for it. We're going to be talking to those two about a cracking Kickstarter. That's going to be 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. That's tomorrow on Bank Holiday Monday. Hopefully they haven't realised that it is a Bank Holiday Monday and they are still going to be available. But that's going to be on tomorrow's show. Do join us for that. Right, we've got people in the chat already. They're all lining up and they're wondering, where the hell's the guest? Come on, this is you don't want to hear me. You want to hear the guest. You want to talk to James Tynion the fourth. Hello there, James. How are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
What is the pronunciation of your surname, please?
It is Tynion.
Tynion. Okay. You see, it's the I and the O, and it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. It's the classic Irish spelling would be more Tynan, and my family still pronounces it that way, but it hasn't been spelled that way in about 200 years. So.
I've been watching a number of live streams just to kind of get my head around a couple of interviews with you, and not one of them had a consistent way of pronunciation your surname.
It's something that I rarely like. I never correct people about it. If they ask, I will provide the correct answer, but it's not something that I like. The name is not spelled the way it's pronounced, so it's like it is unfair of me to expect people to know how to pronounce it.
As somebody who has Leonard as his first name, and there's an O in there, for God's sake, I have my fair share of those. But thank you very much indeed for joining us. I've been starting this run of Talking Con by asking 3 questions, and I'm going to start with question number 1. What is your brew of choice? Do you have a beverage to hand? Do you have yourself a cup of tea today?
I have a can of coffee. There we go. My lazy cup of coffee in the morning that I don't have to, put anything on the stove, but still injects the caffeine I need directly into my brain.
Well, heaven knows you're going to need it, because we'll get into time management in a minute. Then the second question I've been asking is, what was your first convention? What can you remember the first one you went to? And did you go as a pro or did you go as a fan?
So I was definitely a fan, and it wasn't fully a comic convention, but Gen Con, a big gaming convention, used to run out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is where I grew up, and before it moved to Indianapolis. But so, when I was in middle school, roughly, I would say about 12, 13 years old, I would go with friends to, get manga and like anime on VHS tapes and, and all of that. And there was a small comics component, but it was relatively small. The first real convention I went to, comic convention I went to, would have been Wizard World Chicago down in the Rosemont convention center, which I would have gone to while I was in high school with some of my friends. And I remember I saw, there were Marvel panels with Mark Millar at that time. So it's like that roughly that era. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the other question I've been asking is also, has there been a wobbly knees moment with someone you've met at a convention? Either a peer or an idol or someone whose work that you've admired. We'll stick with that one because we'll get into fan interactions in a bit. But certainly for those people that you admire and some those writers and artists that you grew up reading. And
honestly, it's all of them. Like it's something that I've never stopped being a little like when I am given an opportunity to meet someone who is a hero of mine, sometimes I'm just like, I'm not sure I can handle this in this moment. I remember there was one Crazy San Diego a few, 5 years back or so. It was Jim Lee's birthday, and Scott Snyder had been invited to his party up in the, up in the hotel suite, but Scott wanted to go down and see his friends in the bars, and Jim basically dared him. It's like, get everyone in the bar, bring them back up to the party. And so Scott was like, I'm going to do it. And so he went and gathered a bunch of us and then went up to the party. And so there were a bunch of very at that point I was like working on Batman Eternal or something like that. I was not a I wasn't really a name by any means, but it was. And then there was in a corner, Scott was having a conversation with Jeff Johns and Grant Morrison, and it was just and I didn't know anyone at the party other than Scott. So it was just I'm gonna go have a cigarette on the balcony, and because I can't go off into that that corner. So it was that was definitely a that was definitely one of the most oh my god moments. And I did get to meet Grant Morrison. I hope I did not make a fool of myself, but I doubt I made much of an impression either way in that moment.
I've managed to blag my way into a couple of comic artists and comic writers parties, and I've ended up just being sort of super glued to the wall. I've just been so I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to. Not only that, but I'm never really sure about what on earth I'm supposed to say in terms of just having a conversation without, like you say, coming off a little bit. You don't know what on earth to do and say in those moments. But also, I can imagine that there's that reverse element as well when people do meet you at conventions. Can you talk about any favourite fan interactions? Those moments when people come up and how often do you get recognised at a convention?
More than I used to. I mean, I think it's the benefit of being especially when I have my full beard going, and I'm a pretty big guy, so it's something that when I'm walking down the aisle, it's if they've seen me up on a panel, they're gonna notice me on the floor. Not necessarily, but they can. So it's so I do try to keep Sharpies in my pocket when I walk around the show floor now. But it's not, the strangest encounter that I've ever had is, and it was weirdly very early on in my career. This was back when I was on Talent. Was a teenage boy when I was living in New York, and in the Lower East Side at that time, and a teenage boy basically followed me into a grocery store and then asked me, "Are you James Tynion?" And then I said yes, and he was like, "I love your work," and then he ran out of the grocery store. And it was just that was, to this day, that hasn't been topped, and that happened in 2014. So it's it's strange that moment hasn't really been surpassed. But at conventions, there, it's always really, really powerful when you see someone who's who the work really matters for, particularly, because I write a lot about with queer characters, and I've spoken a lot about my journey as a queer person. It's something that, when someone has seen themselves in my work and they bring it up to me, and you can see how much it matters to them, that is extraordinarily powerful.
I can imagine.
And then sometimes when I went to Mexico, that someone brought me this, and I love it. His creepy eyes stare at me all day, and this is my friend. He's been, guarding me for the last couple of years.
Has that been the kind of the totem that's been helping you out over because I know that there's going to be plenty of people that's going to be asking questions. By all means, guys, if you have anything that you want to put to James, we've got plenty of people who are jumping in. We've got Leanne D saying hello, Michael P's joining us, Sarita P's hello, Karen Session, good afternoon from New York. A pleasure to have everyone joining us. Karen Session again. There we go. And yeah, it's just great for everyone to join us. We've also got Jackson Matterhorn watching. Is this live? Yes, it is. We are live now. So any questions you have for James, do dive in. And by all means, I'm counting on you lot for the Batman questions, because we were talking just prior before we came on. Yes, I've been reading Detective. Yes, I've been reading Joker War. Yes, I've been reading a number of the core Batman titles. But it's certainly the stuff you've been doing for Boom, the stuff you've been doing for Image, which has absolutely been rocking my world. Everyone, this is where you have to fill in the gaps when it comes to the Batman questions. Listen, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that when they did Final Crisis and they buried Bruce Wayne, I'm the one that wanted Bruce in the ground to stay there. I didn't want Bruce back. I wanted Dick Grayson to be Batman from now onwards. I wanted the evolution of the character. When it comes to your stories, it's been interesting to see how you're taking in of the you very much are about family across all your titles, and you don't just treat the Bat family with kid gloves. It's very much a case of you love these characters intently. It's almost like you. I don't know if you can correct me on this. Whether you enjoy interacting and writing for the family more than Batman himself and Bruce Wayne. Would that be a fair comment?
I think that there is definitely some truth to that, and I think that part of it is it's very like a very simple thing. I enjoy writing team books, and I enjoy writing books with big casts of characters, and like Batman can be such a solitary character, but I always, even on a book that's meant to have like a singular protagonist, I still need to build a huge supporting cast out around them. So, in Detective Comics, in my Detective Comics run, it was building around the Bat family, and the Bat family are my favorite characters in all of superheroes. And that's why, I wrote about them for 50 issues, and I absolutely love all of those characters. And now on Batman, I'm bringing in a lot of the villain characters, and I'm creating a lot of new villain characters because they are Bruce's other family. And that's the angle that I really, really enjoy, is he has his own relationship with each of them. Even characters like Penguin and the Riddler, there's a familiarity there because they've been doing this for so long. So it's just, honestly, that's something that I really enjoy tapping into, and I do like leaning on the characters around him. And I've been trying to sort of, like, my detective run, very much that was me almost trying to do 1980s 70s 80s like Claremont X-Men, like with the Bat family.
Yes.
And weirdly, what I'm doing now in Batman, I didn't even think about this until later, is what I'm doing now on the main Batman title is I'm trying to do 1990s X-Men with with Batman and the Bat villains. And it's really, like, a lot of it is just trying to challenge myself and trying to go into new places with with this universe that I've been working in and around since I started in comics 8 years ago. So yeah,
because certainly with it must be such a challenge to write Batman and Bruce Wayne because of that almost desire by the audience that they don't want him to change. They want that stoic. There's certainly ways that you can come at the character from the Giant Penny character, the fantastical in terms of dark metal and the fantastical approach. I'm a big. When I saw the trailer for the Batman, by the way, I was absolutely blown away that I'm actually going to be seeing a Dark Knight detective, because that's my Batman. So there's ways to approach the character, but certainly that core element of it, the tenets, as it were, of the actual character, the way that you and Scott and various other writers have come at it, certainly in the last, say, 10 years, have been from the perspective of the family and of the villains, and kind of circling around Batman. If you can talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, it's. Honestly, it's always been about, what is the fresh angle in, and the truth is that a lot of ground has been covered. And this was something that I was talking to Scott about when I was first taking on the title, is when he was stepping on to Batman back in or even when he started on Detective Comics in 2010. That at that moment, in the previous decade, there had only been 2 Batman movies. There had been, I think, 1 Batman animated movie, and there had been the first Arkham Asylum game had come out, and that was it. That was the only Batman media surrounding it. In the following 10 years, there have been, I counted, there between feature animated films that feature Batman as a character and the direct-to-video animated series, there have been about 48 different Batman feature films. There have been a dozen, so many TV shows, entire TV shows like Gotham, and then Batman showing up on other TV shows, and then a whole host of video games that feature Batman or star Batman. And it's one of those things where, time and time again, you sort of see all of these different facets and all of these different ways into his head, which honestly, even though it's something that I know fans are still a little, still figuring out how they feel about it. But when I first took on the job, it was right after we all found out that Alfred was dead and he was actually going to be dead. And it was that honestly was one of the things that made me most interested to take this job, because it's one of those things where this is now an era of Batman that does not, in the modern era, there has not been a moment that he hasn't had Alfred. Alfred's gotten angry and walked out on him before, and there've been little moments where they separate. But seeing Bruce have to approach the entire Batman mythos in Gotham City without Alfred at his side is an opportunity for a really interesting story. So that was one of the things that really dragged me into it.
What was the first thoughts in your head when they approached you to take on Batman?
I mean, honestly, I've wanted this gig for a long time. So when I knew that they were looking, I was like, hey, I want to throw my hat in the ring. And thankfully they went for it. And then especially once Ben Abernathy came in as the Batman group editor towards the end of last year, he and I were really simpatico about what we saw as the potential of the title. To do new things that would spin away from some of the stuff that was being done with the character in other arenas, and how to make this a book that everyone was excited to read 2 times a month. And thankfully, it looks like effectively we seem to have doubled the sales of Batman between my first issue and the first issue of Joker War. So I'm feeling good about it.
Well, I mean, congratulations on Joker War, by the way.
Thank you.
It is a stunning book. I got to ask about Punchline, if anything, because you like you say, adding to the Batman mythos. And for myself, when I first heard about the character, all I could think was that this is a way, perhaps, of redressing some of the balance when it comes to Harley Quinn, because Harley Quinn has been appropriated by pop culture. That going from a real threat to, I mean, well, okay, she can still hold her own. She's still a threat. But she's been appropriated by pop culture. We've got the cartoon, we've got rafts of cosplayers, and some of that bite has been taken out of the character. Not so with Punchline. Punchline is a nasty piece of work. What was your take on creating that character, and what was the reaction from DC when you said that you wanted to do it?
I mean, honestly, it was a character created out of necessity, which is one of the things that I wish I had this ingenious formula of how I did it, but it was it was pretty basic. It was something that I knew that I was going to be building towards a big Joker story this summer. That was something that top down the company wanted, and was just like, James, you were going to deliver a big Joker story, and that's what all of this is going to build to. And so I knew that was happening. About 6 months prior, I had pitched something to the offices which was basically an idea for a kind of next-gen Joker book. And it was something a little continuity neutral. It was going to be off on the side, but and it never went anywhere. But the pitch was essentially the idea of this young man who got his hands on the audio of Joker's sessions in Arkham, and then was slowly radicalizing himself into becoming a new Joker. He fell in love with the ideology, and it started twisting him, and then this nice upstanding kid starts becoming this very dark, scary character, and the people around him need to save him. So I had that initial pitch, and then I get the job on Batman, and it's that pitch is gone because I don't have time to write all those books. But
can I ask when that pitch was? Because that sounds very timely, to be fair.
It would have been around last summer.
Yeah. Okay. So that sounds about right.
Not that long ago. But it was something that I started having that conversation about a character, and then I started talking about doing the Joker story, what would eventually become Joker War, in the main Batman title. And what I started realizing is that, the thing I want to do differently than how Tom approached the Joker and how Scott approached the Joker is we haven't seen Joker really operate with a gang in a long time. Joker has been a very solitary character. We haven't seen him have all of the clowns around him to really wreak some havoc. And so I knew I wanted Joker at the head of a Joker gang. And I knew for that, because Joker's not going to manage all of the little aspects of running a gang, I knew that I needed a number 2 character. So that's when I started drawing the connection. Okay, here, I need a number 2 character. I have this raw idea from back in the summer. And then 2 things happened very quickly, around December of last year. And it was that Tony Daniel drew a cover for, I forget which issue right off the top of my head, but the cover had Harley Quinn on it. And I had already asked, could I use Harley Quinn in the Batman run? And I was told Harley Quinn's a part of the Suicide Squad book with we don't want to, pull her in over here. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But then Tony Daniel draws this cover and Harley's on it. And it's just okay, I know a big thing internally right now is that you guys want to make sure that what's on the cover reflects what's in the book. This means, can I please have Harley Quinn? And then once they gave me Harley Quinn, I was like, okay, now I have Harley Quinn as a part of this story, and I need who used to be the Joker's number 2, and I'm going to be creating a new number 2 for Joker. So that means that this new number 2 essentially needs to be the antithesis of Harley. And that's where that original dynamic was. It's just if we're doing a Betty and Veronica style thing, that Harley is Betty, Punchline is Veronica. If it's the angel and devil on the shoulder, it's Harley's the angel on the Joker's shoulder, Punchline's the devil on his shoulder. And it's just it was building out that dichotomy. And then the other thing that happened right at that moment is we finally figured out that Jorge Jimenez was going to be coming on to do a substantial amount of the issues of Batman in this next year. So it was okay, we have Jorge Jimenez, and Jorge can't start drawing pages yet because he's still wrapping up Justice League, but he can design some new characters. So we give him the designs for the designer and for Punchline, and he turns in the Punchline design, and it is just okay, this is very exciting. And that gets run up the ladder and all of that. And, it's one of those things where I wasn't getting a lot of press right when I started on Batman. So I basically kind of took it into my own hands and started releasing my newsletter to, especially because I wanted to make, selfishly, I knew I was going to be launching a bunch of independent work over the course of 2020. I wanted to make sure that the people who were coming for news about Batman were also getting news about Something is Killing the Children, Department of Truth, Wind, etc. So it's one of those things where it's it was all, part of one thing, but then I threw the Punchline design up on that newsletter with permission from DC and all of that, but they didn't think that that was a news story because I had introduced characters before. And then everything went freaking crazy. And that was, just within a week, we were seeing cosplay and fan art. The fandom corners of the internet were already like acting in the manner of Punchline, a character who had not appeared yet in a single panel. And it was just like, okay, I think we've hit a nerve here, and that's incredibly exciting.
Wow.
That was a big answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's a hell of an answer, because we've seen a kind of. I mean, you talked about the dichotomy between the two characters, especially with Harley on one side, and we saw it with White Knight, with that kind of the two Harleys going at it. But Punchline's, like I say, a different animal, and it's interesting, like you say, the fact that people have latched on to a female baddie, which I mean, I think those are still quite rare. We've in the last couple of years we've seen this kind of anti-hero, the swapping over of a whole roster of female baddies from across comics to this kind of anti-hero, and also this redeemed. There's been this kind of drive to redeem a lot of characters, whereas I can't see that happening for Punchline anytime soon. I think we'll talk quickly about how 2020 has affected comics and the way that we're perceiving our characters. I mean, you're talking there about a lot of time management for artists and creators and trying to get people into place. How has that been for 2020 for yourself during pandemic, during lockdown, with the closing of DC for that period of time? How did 2020 affect you and wanting to get this story out?
Honestly, it's interesting. It's one of those things. None of my projects were ever put on pause. So it's one of but there was this strange moment where, like, basically for 2 months, we had no idea when comics were coming back effectively. Like I was making headway further and further into Joker War without having, without knowing when that was going to come out and what was going to come next. And there were all of these huge questions that were really, really, existential questions about the run that, there are elements to this that I'll be able to talk to more in a year or two, but it's been really fascinating, and it allowed me to sit down and sort of see all of Joker War right in front of me, almost all at once. Like I had written issue 100 before issue 95 came out in stores, and it's working double ship. That's very rare. Like I might occasionally be working on an issue super far ahead, but it's rare that I get like something whole in front of me. And, it's still a gonzo loud kind of story. This isn't me trying to do something this isn't me trying to do something very polished and like intricate and all of that. This is me trying to get at a kind of id that I'm really trying to tap into, to make for, and especially playing off of Jorge's art. Just create this Gotham that is deeply fascinating to look at, with deeply fascinating and colorful characters, that feels like a superhero book. And that is something that, I have been thinking a lot about in quarantine, and all of that is how to sort of make everything I'm doing in and of itself more of what it is in and of itself, if that makes any sense. It's like a superhero comic. I'm not especially in a world where I'm doing books like Department of Truth and Something is Killing the Children and all of that. When I'm doing a superhero comic, I'm not trying to do a superhero comic that is like a secretly another type of thing. I'm not trying to do I'm not trying to do a Vertigo book or an Image book or what have you as baked in as a, with a secret Batman book, secretly as a Batman book. It's me this is me trying to be like, here are all of these amazing toys, and here are some potential for some new toys. And I want to basically make a Batman story that every single page of is like feels kind of electric and makes you want to read the next page. And it's strange because it's a very different animal than what I did on Detective Comics, and time will tell whether or not people which one people like really respond to more. But it's one of those things where it's been a really fascinating journey, because it's like the more independent work I do, the more free I feel to just have fun with the superhero work. Not in a way that I think diminishes the superhero work, but might actually like tap closer into what like people want out of a superhero comic. And like that sounds a little pompous, but that's the hope.
Not at all. I mean, if anything, the reason why I asked the question is because I think a lot of people are looking at their heroes, and they're looking at, because it's not just pandemic, Black Lives Matter, the way that we are responding to people in uniform, our heroes. I think that's evolved over 2020, and it's happened on a dime. And I'm really curious how that's going to affect comics and superhero comics moving forward. We'll get into some other stuff as well in a second, but we do have a couple of comments and questions that have come in before we move to the Patreon feed. We got Solicitor Smeg asking, do you get... Oh, this is actually a little bit more... This is a bigger question. This is a whole other ball game. Do you ever get hate mail from far right or super religious groups? And if so, what group is the worst?
Oh, boy.
Wow. If you want to avoid that one, you're more than welcome.
I mean, I will say I have friends who have, been put through the ringer by some of those groups, and I've been incredibly lucky that, there'll be occasional flare-ups where people, have a particular issue with me that, they feel like they need me to find out about. But honestly, the groups that I tend to piss off more than anything are the various fandoms connected to the Batman and the Bat family, who like different camps within those groups either like love me or hate me, or want to like spam my feed one day or all of that. But the thing is I used to run a Tim Drake fan Tumblr back when I was in college. So it's one of those things where it's like, I understand where you're coming from and I respect where you're coming from. I am not going to engage with any of this because I know that is a losing battle, but I absolutely respect, like, feeling this strongly about it.
What's the phrase? Well, it's the old classic phrase, there's nothing better than... Oh, there's nothing worse than being ignored. If you're creating something, whatever way it's inspiring passion, either vitriolic or positive, at least you're creating something which is generating that kind of... I get that. Into the Blue Mister, it seemed like you had a lot of fun working on the 3 Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle series. How was it working with Freddie Williams?
Oh yeah, I've got the animated movie they made on it, which you should all pick up because they did a very good job adapting it. Honestly, working on that whole series with Freddie was one of the highlights of my entire career. And then especially working on volume 3 of that and actually getting to work with Kevin Eastman, like on art internally, was like, that blew my mind, like absolutely blew my mind. I think if I was confident I knew where it was, somewhere behind me, Kevin Eastman actually sent me one of the pages he and Freddie worked on together. And they were like actually like swapping physical art, like inking, both of them like inking and drawing on the same page for parts of volume 3, which is just absolutely incredible. But I love the whole TMNT mythology. I'm really happy I was able to play with it as much as we did. And yeah, no, I am exceptionally proud of those 3 volumes, and I hope at some point they release like a nice omnibus of it. Like, that would make me very happy.
That would be nice. I'm looking forward to reading Kevin Eastman's new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles book.
Yeah.
because that looks fascinating. Kind of like Batman Returns, Dark Knight Returns kind of
Yeah.
take on the universe. So that's rather cool. What have you been reading over the course of pandemic? I mean, like I say, you had that 2-month period where you weren't too sure when books were going to be coming out. And when I've been speaking to creators over the course of the summer, it's either gone two ways. It's either been people who have been absolutely voraciously taking in everything new, everything that's kind of just Kickstarters, anything kind of just being created in the periphery somewhere, something on Tumblr, somewhere, just anything new, or they've been going all the way kind of comfort food and watching like Friends for days on end. What was your pandemic diet, as it were?
So my partner Sam has always lived a bit more in the indie alternative side of comics. More the Fantagraphics, drawn in quarterly, that side of the business. And so we have this incredible bookshelf where I had only read some of the highlights of that whole bookshelf. And basically I sat down and was just like, you know what? I am going to read everything. And honestly, it was incredibly inspiring, because mixed in with that, it was a lot of books that I had been meaning to read, like from more modern years, but it's, just reading through the entire body of work of Adrian Tomine, who I'd read bits and pieces of before, but just literally starting with Optic Nerve up to today. I literally just read his new book last night, and it's just this is incredibly powerful work. And then on top of that, going in I would say that the most important thing that I finally sat down and read over this whole break was From Hell. And From Hell is something that I had owned since I was 16 years old. And it's something that I deliberately, because I was a pretentious wanted to basically have a great Alan Moore comic that I had never read sitting on my shelf for a rainy day for when I needed it. And it was something that I kept to that. Literally the volume sitting on the shelf had followed me from 4 different apartments, and more than 4 apartments, across the 4 different cities. It has been with me for a long time, but I finally sat down with it. And shocker, it's one of the best comics ever written or drawn. And it's it supercharged my brain. The work of Tilly Walden, I read every book that she's done. Then the work of Adrian Tomine, Upgrade Soul by Ezra Clayton Miller was another big favorite of mine. And then I read a whole lot of Neo Asano's Goodnight Poon Poon, which is a manga series that goes to some really dark emotional places. And it's just all of those things together kind of helped I don't know, it's it stuck a lightning rod into my head a little bit, because for one, it was just it's really important to sort of remember sometimes that we've created all of these little barriers between the different corners of the comics industry, to the point that they feel like wholly different industries and sometimes wholly different mediums. The YA book market side of comics, and the indie alternative Fantagraphic side of comics, and the superhero direct market, and even image side of comics.
They do have their own kind of separate subgenre. There's a little you go into a comic book shop now, it's almost like it's the direct to market, and then there's Image. It kind of has its own department, as it were.
And it's incredibly important every now and then to remember this is actually what the entire breadth of the medium is can do. And it's just it's incredibly inspiring, and it's something that definitely has pushed me in a lot of ways in terms of how I want to approach what I'm doing moving forward. And it's just what kind of work am I interested in doing, and and putting out into the world. Like, it's, because I think I've said publicly a few times, I don't know how much longer. I know I want, like, I'm on the, I'm staying on Batman as long as I can stay on Batman. But once I'm done there, I think I might want to take a break from superheroes for a bit. Like, honestly, I want to try a few things and see how they work. And I'm like, and it's exciting. I like experimenting. I like challenging myself. I like seeing if I can pull something off. So, I look forward to that.
I find it interesting with the titles you mentioned. Those are not. They're not simple concepts. They're ones that have taken a lot of detailing and a lot of planning and a lot of just core mythology creation before a single keystroke was made on a word processor. It's something that has taken a lot of building and laying out before you actually move to the process. And that I can certainly talk to when it comes to Wind and also Department of Truth, which we'll get into in a second. A couple of comments that are coming in, a couple of questions as well. Mark Abnett is asking a process question. Pitching to publishers, what are your top tips for getting your pitch noticed and approved by editors? That's an interesting one. If anything, because I mean, for yourself, I think it was more. Was it just sheer energy for the project than anything? I mean, if you can go to that.
Yeah, I like at this point, I have the benefit of, now I have a bunch of relationships places, but you can always tell when you have a really exciting like core concept, and it's when you have the great core concept and you are I'm trying to figure out the best way to approach this answer. Honestly, the most important thing to keep in mind is that your pitch document is the first creative document. That is something that I believe wholeheartedly. I actually wrote a whole piece about this for Panel by Panel, the issue that was centered on Something is Killing the Children. But like, honestly, this is like, when you are, it's the same job over and over and over, because like when you are writing a 1-page pitch document, and that is a key thing. If you cannot explain your core concept in a single page, then like you are not going to be able to catch an editor's attention with it. That doesn't mean it can't, like the document behind the Department of Truth and all of that was a 20-page document I wrote. But that first page had all of the core pieces that you needed to understand to like, oh, I grasp what this series is. And so like, if you need like practice on your 1-pagers, but then it's like you like and part of the reason that's important is like, that's not only how you sell it to your editor, that's how you sell it to the reader, and that's how you sell it to retailers. And actually, I mixed the order up. It's like, first you sell it to your editor, then you sell it to retailers, and then you sell it to the reader. Like right now, I am in the process of, like, for Department of Truth, I'm selling it to the retailers right now, because there's still one more week before the final order cutoff for Department of Truth #1. And so I have one more week to get every retailer in my country and other countries to like order as many copies as I can get them to order, because once that day passes, those order numbers are set, and anything at that point, after that point, will be like second printings and beyond. But it's just like, you want the most right then. So it's just like, it's simplifying everything down to that first like exciting core concept that then you're going to need to be able to like wield and weaponize over and over and over again to as you scale up in your battle to get this into people's hands. So that's the biggest thing that I have to say. And editors can read your enthusiasm, and they can read if you're tapping into something that's genuinely interesting to you, or if you're just trying to like cash in on a trend. Like there are always some people who feel like, it was like how after Lost ended, like for the next 5 years, everyone was trying to create like a ripoff of Lost on every different network. and but it wasn't like the next like big geek show wasn't, or was it Game of Thrones, or was there an interim show? I don't know, but it was a few years later, and it had nothing. It was nothing like Lost. Like, so it's just like, it's one of those things. Don't just try to like tap into what seems hot at the moment. You need to be able to, you tap into what you are most interested in at the moment, and you need to basically capture your enthusiasm in like a box, and then like be like, see, I am a boundless source of enthusiasm for this idea. Like, I am going to sell this like with everything in my might, and first I'm going to sell it to you. And it's like there is a bit of salesmanship to all of it.
Fair enough. I also kind of like to touch then on kind of like time management and how you have managed to tap into a number of boxes and genres. Certainly at the moment, you've got yourself a fair few things catching your attention at the moment. Obviously, Department of Truth is foremost on your mind at the moment because that, like you say, is imminent. It's on the way. But if we can talk about time management and kind of balancing and spinning all of those plates, is it something that you enjoy having the ability to kind of work on a project, work on that particular element of that, see if you can crack that particular nut on that particular section of whatever story that may be, and then going, okay, I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to now go to Wind. I'm going to go to Children. I'm going to go to Department of Truth, because there is, I mean, not only that, we have yet to talk about your Kickstarter as well, or your crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Effort. So there's so much stuff that you've got going on. How do you approach time management and approaching all these different projects?
Well, I don't sleep, so that helps.
There you go. That's a one answer.
I mean, honestly, it's something that I struggle with, but it's one of those things where I like having a bunch of irons in the fire. I like, and I made a very, I made a decision a couple of years ago, and this was something that would have been, I'm trying to think what year it would have been San Diego Comic-Con 2018. And I basically was just like, you know what? I need to start moving away from, like, at that point, every single book I was working on was a DC superhero type. I had wrapped up The Woods. I had wrapped up all of my previous, I think that year a couple of Backstagers one-shots came out, but aside from that, there was no new creator-owned work from me that year. And I realized that it was just like, not only was that having a negative impact on, like, my creative, my creativity, but it was also just like, it was having a negative emotional impact just on me. I was feeling like I was in a box, and I was feeling that, like, working at a corporation like DC, there's always internal politics. There's always, like, there are a million things that, people that, you like, stories you'll never hear about, or not, they wouldn't even be interesting to hear about, that just, like, can ruin entire weeks because someone doesn't like how one panel looks on a page, and then that changes the direction of 4 written issues, and it's just like, and what was supposed to plug into that, and it's just like all of those little things, all of those little frustrations, and it's like, I need to take a bit more control in this. But I also know that I am not going to, I can't do that tomorrow, so I need to build towards it. So I basically, that summer, set in motion a whole bunch of stuff. And surprisingly, one thing I did was I started writing. I signed a 3-year contract at DC, and that was something that was like, okay, this is my timeline of what I can do to do this. And I knew I had Wind, I had Something Is Killing the Children, and I knew that, and that was the summer that I initially pitched Department of Truth to what was then Vertigo. And so those were sort of the three core concepts, and I knew I wanted to get all three core concepts out there. It was that right before that in New York Comic Con that I reached out to Martin Simmonds, who was still wrapping up Friendo at that time, I believe, or maybe it was the second season of Punk's Not Dead, but it was one of those two. But it
Well, he's somebody else that spins a number of plates. To be fair,
yes, he is, and it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm going to set all of these things in motion, and then over the course of the next 3 years, they will start coming out, and I will be able to do all of this stuff and start like pulling back a little bit from the superhero work. And then last year, something crazy happens, which is I get the opportunity to make a real push for the Batman title, and then I get it. And then it's just like, oh God, I have way too much work on my plate, and I could in this moment put a pause on each of my side projects, but it's also this is a tremendous opportunity. I have one of the biggest spotlights in all of comics on me, and I have these like big ideas that I'm very, very excited about that are about to start coming out in the world. And it's just like, I knew in that moment that I was just like, okay, this next year is going to be hard. Like, it's going to be hard work to get it all done. But I can't put the brakes on any of these projects. I need to make sure that they come out, and I need to make sure that they launch as strongly as they can, and it needs to be the best work that I've ever written. And that was sort of the genesis of like where I'm at now. So a lot of it is like long-term planning, but then there's the little chaos element that always throws itself in, which is like, I didn't plan for, creating a punchline. And now there's some like, and I'm creating other new characters in and around Gotham where all of a sudden it's like, well, what if about doing this side one shot? What about doing this thing? And then that adds onto my plate too. And then on top of it, it's like, then over here in Something is Killing the Children, like we're approaching a scenario where there's a chance that issue 11 of Something is Killing the Children might outsell issue 1 of Something is Killing the Children. And it's like, that's incredible. So it's just like all of these things are happening, and I need to sort of keep all of these like engines in motion. And it's exhausting, but it's also exhilarating. And it's, in each of my titles right now has a very different feel and is a very different animal. And that's something that is crucial. I need, like, it needs to feel like I'm stretching a different muscle. Sure. With everything I'm doing. And so the process of working on all of these projects feels like I'm getting, a full body workout. Yeah, so that's kind of how I think about it and approach it.
I'm curious as to see how you would actually equate the books that you do to your. Okay, so Batman's your cardio. Wind is your legs. It's the energy. Okay, well,
yeah.
that's a legs day. Okay, I've no idea what you'd call Something is Killing the Children. What on earth you would call that?
Oh boy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like I said at the top of the show. It's definitely the creator-owned titles which have absolutely been rocking my world. Something's Killing the Children, obviously incredibly well received, and also I like the fact that you do acknowledge that you've got the Batman spotlight, but that light spills onto these other projects, and that raises them to the fore. And I think that's interesting to talk about. When it comes to Something is Killing the Children, I think the book that I equate it to when I describe it to people is Witches. There is that real sense of a world that something is happened way before this story. This is an ecology. This is it's not something that you are just observing. You are kind of seeing around the corner at something a lot bigger. How much, when it comes to planning this, I mean, we could talk about this for all of the titles you've mentioned. When it comes to that time management, or at least putting the time into creating the world before you actually launch the book, how much detailing have you gone into creating the mythology of these books before hitting page 1, and once the books have started coming out, how has that mythology evolved? With Something is Killing the Children, I mean, there's clearly some more stuff coming down the line. There's going to be all these various types of monsters on the way. But yeah, how much of that has been kind of nailed down, or how much of that is something you are kind of learning as the story goes on?
Well, I mean, so this is the interesting thing. Like when it comes to a book like Department of Truth, I had like I said, I had a 20-page document. I have something that outlines 15 core issues that like are the central myth arc of the story, and based on the success of what feels, knock on wood, but it seems like the first issue is going to go over well. I think that that's going to be expanded by a couple of arcs, and we're going to bring in a few more elements. So all of that, I know effectively where the Department of Truth ends, and while some things are changing in and around as I'm writing it, like I'm still following. As I write issue by issue, I'm still following roughly my outline of what I wrote back in 2018. There's still the central idea, like how I approach every issue changes, but the core, here's a 3-sentence description of what happens in that issue, those are still accurate. So that is, genuinely a very, it feels good because it's like, okay, this core idea still works. I'm not tearing it all up. Something is Killing the Children was a very different animal. Originally, when I pitched it to Boom, it was a 5-issue miniseries, and every single issue was going to be a standalone one-shot. And Erica Slaughter was going to be is a kind of unknowable character who clearly represented this larger universe of monster hunters. But every single issue, she would arrive in a different town, fight a different monster, and leave. It was basically the high concept was I wanted to do like an entire series that was like the standalone one shots in like Hellblazer or Sandman, where it's just like here, and like Sandman, doing stories where I shift away from the central POV of Erica and go into a random person and like let them tell the story. So that was sort of the initial idea. I started writing the first issue and I realized that wasn't the comic. That wasn't this comic. I knew that this wasn't something that I was looking to resolve in one issue. I knew this was a longer story. So I reached out to my editor and I was just like, okay, I need all 5 issues to tell one story. So I'm changing that right off the bat. And then as I start going from there, it was around issue 3 that was like, I need more than 5 issues. And it was just like, then you better hope that the first issue sells. And thankfully it did. And I think that I benefited. I was incredibly lucky with the launch of the unannounced ending of The Walking Dead benefited Something is Killing the Children tremendously. Seriously, because the retailers all over the country, their top selling horror comic was gone and it was no longer a monthly sell. And that happened in July, I think. And September, with Something is Killing the Children, was the next major horror launch of anywhere. And thankfully, I think I had a good first issue that captured people's imagination. So it's like all of those pieces sort of came together. But for writing the first arc of Something is Killing the Children was a sort of act of discovery. Now I have a much more, I've built out the mythology, and I understand the mythology now. I still throw a wrench in for myself every now and then to be like, what if I do this cool thing that changes this element? But a lot of that sort of came fully formed, as I was doing it. It was, which is strange. I've never really had that process before, where the story kind of dictates itself. But now I'm following a plan, and I know where it's all going, and yada yada yada.
Yeah. So I didn't want to imply that you're just making this up as you go. I really didn't want that to come across. But
Sometimes I am.
Yeah. But when I equate it to witches, it's the sense of the monsters that are involved. They're physical. There's a tangible. There's a physics, and however fantastical it may be, there's a physics to the whole thing, and I think that's something that's started to become more to the fore in horror comics and indeed horror as a genre. Relatively recently, I think it's something that it's become the prevalent approach to horror. In that nowadays we kind of know what horror looks like. We see it when we turn on the news. We read it on a day-to-day basis. So we have a tangible sense of what horror is.
Yeah.
In our fiction, we're that's kind of spilling into a different set of rules, but there's a definite. It's not so much the shadow in the corner. You get the sense of the shape of the shadow. You get the sense of there's a physicality there, and it's a real physical threat.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
No, and honestly, the core conceit in Something Who's Killing the Children is it's basically taking all of that abstract horror and creating a shadow monster out of it. Like it is, but and I think that drawing a through line from me to witches, and then from witches you can go from Scott to Stephen King. Like that
Very
is
much so,
there
yeah.
is always a even when Stephen King goes abstract, he always grounds his horror in a very real world, and with very human characters that make even the strangest pieces of mythology he's played with, like they still feel like guttural and real. And I think that is a huge influence on both Scott and myself. And it is, I think Scott and I kind of, we have, obviously we've worked together for so long. We have there are traits to what we enjoy in horror that are aligned. And I think sort of the core message of both are a little different. I think that my horror stories tend to be a lot more about how, I am someone who's always been skeptical of systems and organizations and like all of that. And that's part of why, in Something Is Killing the Children, the Order of Monster Hunters that Erica is a part of, they are not like just good guys. They are kind of a like corrupt and stagnant organization that Erica's going off on her own to fight. And I think that reflects something like, real in the world. But it is something about you need to, like if you're going to stick a knife in someone, like to make them feel something with horror, like you want there to be teeth in the knife. You want them to have something to grip it to grip onto. And I think that going at it through, camp, or going at it through, something a little more heightened and stylized, it loses the fact that horror is real and a real emotion that people feel in their day-to-day lives. And horror fiction serves a purpose in unpacking that feeling. Sure. And so it's just I love the more aesthetic horrors and the goofy horrors and the campy horrors. I am all about I'm a horror geek. So it's just I've read and seen all of those things and will continue reading and seeing all of them. But it's something that I do when it's the sort of work I am drawn to, is I want something that feels grounded with one foot in the modern world, because the modern world is really freaking scary. And it's something that we need to start unpacking. We need to start unpacking all of the comfortable emotions of today in our fiction. We can't keep having, all of our fiction can't just be echoes of stories that were 20, 30 years, 60 years, 100 years old. We need new contemporary horror.
I appreciate that. We've got Leanne D who's saying, I love how he changed the path of the story, and I think that's why I love the book. It's grounded in reality. It's the last time I mentioned witches. The thing about that book is that it's definitely a story where the characters are falling into the world of witches, and it's falling in that direction. You're falling into the tree, you're falling into the woods, that regard.
Yeah.
With Department of Truth and with Something is Killing the Children, from the way I kind of been equating it is, you know that meme that went around where there was a werewolf kind of uh, image coming up the stairs towards you, and you could see the werewolf coming at you, and the reaction is, what? How would you react? And of course, everyone's reaction is, well, I'd shit myself. Clearly,
Yeah.
But it's a physical thing that is coming towards you. It's spilling out into the world, and it's affecting the crowd and the characters that you have in your in the books. So it's a different direction of the horror that I see in the books, and I think that's certainly with Department of Truth. I mean, you're talking there about Something is Killing the Children, about the tangible horror, the tangible monsters. With Department of Truth, you can go pretty much bloody everywhere. This is where it gets slightly awkward to talk about this, and I know that we're now currently talking to the Patreon audience, so it's a slightly smaller audience, which is great, because at least then I can be a little bit more open about Department of Truth, because it's very difficult to discuss this story without spoiling it. It's a son of a bitch to talk about because
and I will say I am trying to keep that last page intact for the readers.
Trust me, I mean I've got a couple of screen caps, and trust me, they are nowhere near the back end of the book. Oh, trust me.
Yeah.
If we can, we'll talk very quickly about Department of Truth. Can you give that one sentence first page pitch, just so I don't ruin it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, honestly, it's
because I don't even know if I can mention the character that's in the first section of the book.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think what we can say is that this is a book about conspiracy theories, and this is a book in which there is this book exists in a world where the more people believe in something, the more true that becomes. So when there's a dangerous conspiracy theory growing, it is more dangerous in this world, because if enough people believe in it, it starts to manifest in reality. And then once it's manifest, it can become the new truth. And then when that becomes the truth, it changes everything retroactively to make that true. So there's the big example that's played out in the first issue is flat Earth, and how that's connected to the moon landing and all of that stuff, and basically the idea that if all of a sudden there was proof that we lived on a flat Earth, it's not only that it wouldn't just be like, oh man, everyone's been lying to us that it's a flat Earth. It's think of how deep those lies would be. It would be every world government would have been lying to its people for ages. Every airline would have been lying to people about the direction planes go. The entire space program would be fiction. And it's one of those things where it's just when you have, it creates this level of menace and this level of all of that then all of a sudden society would become wildly more unstable and all of that, when that changes of that scale have happened. So that's kind of the core pieces. But I would say that the big thing with the Department of Truth is I wanted to play with the real conspiracy theories here. I'm not looking, we're not looking to create. So far in writing this book, I have not created a conspiracy theory. I am using ones that exist in the real world. Sometimes it's a slightly fictional variant on a real world one, like issue 2 deals with a case similar to the McMartin preschool trial back during the Satanic Panic of the 1980s.
Right.
But I don't actually use the McMartin preschool trial because I didn't want to sort of twist that for my own means. Because I mean that honestly, one of the most difficult things in this book is trying, I'm playing with some fire here, and I need to respect the fire, and I need to make sure that I, don't let it go
No, I mean,
untended.
certainly when it comes to the conspiracy theory, I mean, yeah, I was thinking about this, about the conspiracy theories in future episodes and future issues going forward. And certainly for the biggest one for the last decade, 2 decades, is 9/11.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that gets touched on at some point.
At some point, that'll definitely get touched on.
Fair enough.
And, because I mean, I remember, honestly, like when I was in early high school, it's when there was this video that was going around online called Loose Change. And, it made a very compelling argument, which then, like, literally, I was getting a little swept up in it, because it was just like I watched it, and then I bought the like $9.99 DVD of it, and I would like show it to some of my friends, and it literally took my dad, like, who finally saw that I had it and understood what it was, and he like sat me down and was just like, for one, I have one of my aunt's brothers, not blood related, but extended in the family, passed away in the 9/11 attack, because I have tons of family here in New York, and it's just like, and it was one of those things where it's like, there is a line between questioning the government and questioning like what their motives are and all of that, and that, like, you need to question authority. And then there's the line where you're dealing in fantasy that hurts people, and like he laid that out to me very clearly. So it's like that one in particularly, I do like, I will, we'll be getting to it down the road. But in the first three issues, like the first one deals with flat Earth, the second one deals with the satanic panic of the 80s, which sets up some stuff which, there's elements of the satanic panic that you can see in the QAnon, conspiracy and all of that.
There it is. There's the word.
Like, but it is something that, like, so all of those things. And then issue 3 deals with crisis actors and false flag attacks. So it's something that it's like, because, and that's sort of the gun issue. But it's a, like, I'm going to some emotionally dark places here, and I'm trying to, like, unpack a bit of the humanity of those dark places. Not the humanity, like, that feels like the wrong way to put it. I want to unpack some of the uncomfortable feelings and the contradictions that can lead people to believe in these horrible things. And then I want to create an organization that is like, you're not sure whether or not they are the good guys, because really what they're doing is they are deciding what's true based on what is in the best interests of America. And that isn't necessarily the best, like, gauge of what should be the truth of the world. And there's a larger history at play. I have like a deep mythology that I plan on getting into that doesn't just touch on American history, but world history. And we start getting into that in issue 6, where we'll start to see how this goes back all the way to the fall of Rome and before. And it's just like, you can see, like, this is the, I'm really excited with that one, and I'll be able to talk more about it soon. But it deals with the phantom time hypothesis, which is one of my favorite conspiracy theories, which is the idea that Charlemagne is an entirely fictional character that the Catholic Church created to basically, the fall of Rome was too recent, and so people saw European society as being like this collapse thing, while, like, this was the Islamic Golden Age, and all of this stuff was happening, where it's just like, and then like all society seemed to be rotting up in Europe, and then all of a sudden it's like, if we say that, like, basically 200 to 300 we're 200 to 300 years further into the future from all of that, then like, it was around the creation of the Holy Roman Empire and all of this, where we can basically pretend that we are and this has been wildly discredited. Because the biggest sign is that both from the Islamic empires at the time, and then also in China, there is history for those missing years. So of course those years definitely happened, but it's a fun conspiracy to play with.
This is the reason why I've been so excited about this book. There's so much stuff going on in this book. I mean, we've got Leanne D saying, if Department of Truth is as good as something is killing the children, then I'll be grabbing that. Yes, it is. I mean, the level and the levels that this can go into is over the course of this. I mean, certainly the first issue, which I've read, it is absolutely stunning. And certainly the feeling that I had was, I mean, I think I don't know if it was the same video, but certainly the 9/11 videos, when I started falling down a bit of a rabbit hole of believing some of these videos and wondering and questioning, but then I almost had to have, I mean, I didn't have somebody like my father to pull me back. I had to kind of pull myself back from the brink. And there's a real sense of that in this book, that there's there's this, like you say, an organization that will pull you back from the brink, but why and how, and it's a phenomenal stuff. You mentioned QAnon, and you don't mention or reference them by name in the book, as far as I remember. But we are at a time now when, even in the last week or so, we have seen a mammoth amount of people flocking to this conspiracy theory and willing it into existence. And that's why reading this book at this time, it was almost one of those kind of like, okay, it's the Matrix glitching kind of things. It was a little bit too convergent when I read Department of Truth. The other thing that I want to put to you then is, for yourself and for your own, not protection as such, but knowing that QAnon has this much sway at the moment, and this is a book about political oversight, as it were, of conspiracy theory, in which point QAnon has got that influence. Do you sometimes, or have you been kind of safeguarding yourself against any kind of comeback against that particular bunch?
I mean, I think that this is something that the way I plan
it was a messy way for me to ask the question. I'm sorry about that.
No. It's a difficult question, and it's one that I need to be asking myself. But it is something that I think the benefit of what I'm doing here in the series is that it allows me to kind of split a difference in an interesting way, where the core conceit is so high fantasy, like fantastic, and it's one of those things where it's like, the idea of a wholly subjective reality that can, reshape based on belief is a like high sci-fi concept, of the first degree. So it's one of those things that I know that as I'm approaching all of this through fiction, like the thing that would make me uncomfortable is I don't want to ever purport to be saying that like I am writing the true history of the world. Like, it's one of those things, because there are real conspiracy theories. There are real, and there are things that are conspiratorial, like it's one of those things where, and this is something that I want to touch on at some point. There are the things that are taught as conspiracy theories, and then we learn are like functionally true, including a lot of what like America and the CIA did in the 1980s. And it's just like, it is something that, those tend not to be the most like, salacious ones in terms of involving aliens or things like that. But it is something that there is, there are true secret histories to the world, and this book is not designed to approach them. It is about the way that we play with these symbols over and over and over again, which is the fact that QAnon is effectively the same thing as the Satanic Panic, which is essentially the same thing as a number of predecessor, beliefs of, the idea of certain people like eating babies and stuff like that. And it's like it ties into the mythology of witches. It ties into the mythology of like it's such a core fear that is probably more animalistic than anything, where it's just like we are afraid that some other is going to like steal and eat our children. And it's just like there is something so base about that that is returned as a symbol time and time again over history. And so it's something that it's like all of that I find incredibly interesting to play with. But it is something that it's like I am playing with it in fiction and I'm dealing with it in fiction. The version of, you know, and honestly, one of the things that I think sort of safeguards what, like, because I do intend
it's not stopped them in the past. That's the problem.
That's fair. You know, but it's like part of how like the way I want to approach the concept of Q in the story is safeguarded with a few rungs of fiction that like extra like makes it part of the core mythology of the fictional universe I'm creating, rather than tapping into like what's happening on the streets today. So it's one of those things that, like, you know, hopefully that plays with it, but we'll see. I do have a feeling I'm gonna, you know, like have some interesting email friends who are gonna start popping up.
Yeah, I just feel that eye of Sauron just kind of swinging around. That's the fear. I mean, I'm curious as to see whether it's going to touch on various other conspiracy theories down the line. I mean, the moment I see the word, I don't know how likely it is for you to put it into your script, but the moment I see Scientology showing up, that's when you're really going to start touching blue touch paper, and that's when things really start getting interesting in your emails.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk, because there's something that we haven't talked about when we have been discussing all of the project so far, is your creative collaboration with artists and people. Let's talk about Martin Simmonds on this book.
He's so good.
This is career best, man. This is just absolutely staggering stuff. How did you find out about him, and what did it take to persuade him to come on the book?
I mean, going back to, you know, 2018, this was when I was, and I think I actually was having a Facebook chat with, you know, my friend Matt Rosenberg at the time. And I was just like I knew I had this idea, and I knew that basically, like, you know, if I could create an artist out of thin air, the person that I would want to draw this book is like some unholy combination of Bill Sienkiewicz and Dave McKean. Like, that's who I want to draw the book. And it was one thing where I think it was Matt who pointed me in the direction of Martin, whose work I had seen before. Like I'd seen it on, like, Friendo was coming out at that time, and I had seen Punk's Not Dead, and I really enjoyed his work. But some of that work was moving a bit more in almost a Phil Noto kind of direction. It was a bit, there was a bit more of a digital edge to it and all of that. And, but looking at his Instagram, he had done these Inktober pieces that were, you know, black and white, very scritchy sketches of a bunch of musicians for, you know, 2 years ago. And those were so incredible. And they had captured the exact feel that was in my head. And so it's like, it was seeing those pieces, and it was reaching out to Martin, and it was just like, what can I, like, would you be willing to go, like, more down this road? Like, is this something, like, is this peeling away from the way you want to move the direction you're moving your art? Or is this, like, the actual direction you want to move your art in? And so we had that kind of conversation. And thankfully, he was much more interested in getting back into something more physical. And he loved the idea of playing with, you know, collage and all of these different techniques that I feel like have kind of fallen by the wayside in mainstream comics, but especially in the, you know, especially in the specific period of the 80s and early 90s that I think we're both Martin and I are particularly drawn to were common in the works of Sienkiewicz and McKean. And like, so all of that kind of came together to be like, okay, like Martin is absolutely the person for the job. And so I was, you know, like there wasn't another person I reached out to about art for this story. Like this is something that like the first person was that I reached out to was Martin, and he thankfully was very excited by the pitch, and you know, and then like it's sort of, he had some work on his plate. It was going to be another year before he was available, and then my schedule became absolutely insane, and thankfully he reached out to be like, hey, I have this opportunity to do this book with Joe Hill at IDW. That basically gave me an extra like 6 to 8 months to get the first issue together. And
I was wondering what your time frame was putting Department of Truth together.
Yeah, so it was about 2 years, and it was and that's pretty typical. Like, and honestly, I'm starting to have conversations right now about books that probably won't come out until 2022 and 2023. Like, it's, you know, there's always a long tail, especially when you're working with like someone as talented as Martin or some of the other artists I'm working with, to just like, when is the schedule going to align? You know, and especially for a project like this, because this is, you know, this is a long form series. Like right now, I have a rough sketch that'll take us through about 32 issues. But the thing is that this is like part of how we're doing it is 20 of those 32 issues will be me and Martin. But one of the things that, you know, Martin and I agreed on, but to, you know, so there isn't like a 4-month gap between every single arc of this. Like, I wanted to do the classic Vertigo thing and bring in people for one-shots that get to show different aspects of this world in between big arcs. So we've lined up like a truly like knockout lineup of fill-ins between the first arc and the second arc that will expand the mythology of the world, and then we'll come back for another big myth arc piece with Martin, and then we'll do another interstitial. So it's like, that's part of the balance of what we're doing, and part of the goal there is to make sure that Department of Truth comes out in stores every single month, which, you know, is a thing that I'm trying to promise, and then I look at my schedule and then I cry sometimes, because I know I totally could have gotten away with the breaks, but I also know that those breaks mean that every time you take a break like that, people, comic shops lower their orders, and people like use that break as a chance to switch over to collecting it in trade. Like, having something that's a consistent like monthly comic book helps. Like, it just absolutely does, and that is part of my goal right now.
Fair enough. If we can talk about, I mean, I want to talk to you about everything for ages. Trust me, if I could keep you on for hours, I would do, because I mean the book. Okay, let's jump topic and let's talk about Wind, because this is another book which I know a lot of people are talking about Joker War and Batman, and a lot of people are talking about Something Is Killing the Children. This is a book for me which has just so much heart, and it bleeds the passion and the personal interest that you have onto every page. It's just you can feel it in the page. It's just absolutely a stunning personal story too, clearly. If we could talk about Wind, just anything, and where the earth do you start?
No, it's
in terms of mythology for this book. Then, I mean, was it about the two-year ballpark for this as well, or has this been something that's really been percolating in your head?
Yeah, no, this is the book that I would, you know, when I was in high school, I would write I carried a binder around classroom to classroom, and when I wasn't paying attention to class, I would fill out that notebook with ideas of the world of a serial and the core cast and you know, mythology of the world of Wind. And that was, you know, like it's one of those things where I am so desperate to get my hands on those old notebooks at some point, because like, at this point they're kind of lost to time. But that was the genesis of this, and this is one of the oldest stories to me, and it's honestly stayed pretty true to the story that I came up with when I was in high school, and all of these feelings were a lot more present for me. And it is a world where it's a world where the human race has kind of walled themselves off in a town called Pipe Town, and there are people with magical blood in the world around them, and they are deathly afraid of magic and magic-blooded people. And the idea that because in this world, magic leaves a mark on you, and it's like, in the if you go out into the world changes you, and you might not be recognizable when you come home. And I think in describing it in those terms kind of gets right at the heart of the metaphor that I'm going with there, where it is something. This is the core idea of this book, is that the world changes all of us, and resisting that change and being afraid of that change is against human nature, and and you need to embrace it. And so that's sort of the core idea. It's a young cast of characters. It's me doing my YA series. Originally this was going to be 3 original graphic novels. That plan has changed a little bit. It'll be sort of 3 mini-series that run over the course of the next few years. And each of those miniseries will be like 5 issues, 50-page issues. Like, it's going to keep that format. And honestly, this world has lived in my head for so long. And then, like, the second that I brought Michael on board, this was, Michael was my co-creator of The Woods.
Another surname I can't get my head around either.
Oh yeah, I don't even know that I know how to pronounce it. It's the Alinas. Like, it's one of those things that you kind of have to, like, the Alinas. Like,
just run at it.
Yeah, exactly. And like the D is a bit more of a TH, but yeah, no, it's yeah. Anyway, but yeah, this, when I brought him on and we started like actually defining the visual aspects of the world and how to sort of keep it modern. Like, what I was coming up with in high school was a lot more like traditional hard fantasy. Like, and this world like is something that came out of our collaboration and wanting to do something that was a little more eclectic and strange, and and I think that helps give it a bit more weight.
Yeah, there's definitely that sense of while the world is very fantastical, well, apart from the metaphor level, of course, but the world that you've created is fantastical. The language is very contemporary. There's they talk like you would hear on a day-to-day basis. So there's that real sense of connection in that regard, just as to get yourself into the story. I find it interesting that you are looking at the longer arc and how it's evolving. Where can you talk about where you're thinking in terms of how far you want to expand the world of Wind, the various the locations and the character, the roster that you're looking at?
Yeah, no, honestly, I have a pretty concise plan through that'll take us through, what I saw originally as the 3 graphic novels of Wind. Like, and those tell one story, and then, if those books are successful and I want to tell more stories in that world, there are kernels for those stories in everything that I was doing back in the day. But honestly, this is meant to kind of tell the full story of the character Wind and his journey with his own identity, and the character Prince Yorick. Like, this whole core cast, each of them will go on a big journey. that's really going to touch them and change them, and put them into really frightening circumstances. And and that's another thing that I wanted to, I call this a young adult book, and it's one of those things where I think a lot of young adult books in the comic space are really middle grade books. But this is something that I wanted, like, this is a story with death in it. This is a story where there's, there's some scary beats in this, but it is still meant for a, it's something that, I'm not supposed to be talking about this yet. I might be having some conversations about adapting this for other media. And, one thing that has been an interesting part of that conversation is, like, how do I have the conversation of who is the core audience for this book? And the real thing is that the thing that I keep pointing at is, like, Avatar: The Last Airbender is sort of the perfect model, where it's something that has the light comedic moments, but then does not remotely shy away from the deep, powerful, emotional moments. And that is the core essence that I want Wind to have. And that is also the thing that it's like, if retailers are like, how do I sell this book? Like, I can't sell this to the Something is Killing the Children fan and all of that. So it's like, this is for fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender. That is what I'll say. Like, I think there's a nice one-to-one there.
Yeah. I mean, when I was reading it, I definitely thought to myself, this could do very nicely as an animation series on, say, Netflix or Amazon Prime. It's definitely
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, absolutely. And I think the other story that I equate it to as well, in terms of just the sheer level of depth of for a young adult, for a YA book, the level of conversation it brings up. If you've read a book called Angelic by Caesarea,
yeah. I am familiar with it. I have not read it, but you making that connection makes me like I have to pick that up.
I'd certainly point that in your direction, because there is that sense of a world that's been created to tell a story, but there's so much more going on. And not only that, but it just looks absolutely gorgeous. It is, I mean, yeah, Michael's just done a stunning job on the work of Wind. It's just a beautiful book to look at there. I think what we'll do to wrap up and let you get on your way, because I've just looked at the time and realised how long we've been talking. Considering that, I said I was going to try and keep these shows to an hour. That got blown out of the water. The order I was going to talk to you about the books was Joker War, I was going to talk about Wind, I was going to talk about Department of Truth. I was going to leave Something is Killing the Children to the end, because that would dovetail nicely into this, Razorblades. Now, this is interesting. Because the one commonality of the creators that I've been talking to over the course of the summer is with the way that the comics industry has felt fractured and that things could change on a dime. Creators have felt that they need to make a more direct connection with their audience, and that they need to do it in a way that they have some form of editorial control and control of release. And the way that they've done that is through crowdfunding and various other alternative methods. Razorblades is an interesting one because it's a horror magazine. You haven't seen many of those kind of doing the rounds, because people are wanting to try and get as broad an audience as possible. So to focus in, why was it for you the need to focus on the horror genre when it comes to this particular project?
Well, this goes back to one of my first, one of the first answers to one of the questions that you were asking, which was, what have I been reading? And the From Hell, when I say that From Hell was one of the most important things that I read this year, the part of the reason that's true is that it led me to be like, it's like, it led me to like read up about how it was created. And I knew in the back of my head that it had started in a horror anthology, a book called Taboo. And so I thought I was going to be able to grab this faster than, no, all right. I can't grab them right now. I was going to hopefully hold up an issue of Taboo right there. But, honestly, I went on eBay, and I bought the full run of Taboo. and they all showed up in the house. And the thing that really struck me about it was a lot of what I was talking about before. It was the fact that in that first issue, you have a story by Charles Burns, you have a piece, an illustration by Clive Barker, you have a piece by Alan Moore that not like he doesn't start. I think From Hell starts in issue 2 or 3, but it's the it was all of these different people who were who were from all of the different corners of the comic book industry, which was starting to break off into those different corners right then, where you had the black and white indie self-published books, you had the companies like Eclipse and things like that, where there was a kind of moment where there was a lot of different material flowing around, but it was sort of the recognition that nowadays, like, something like that is you don't like question how strange it is, but it's like thinking of, like, imagine a world in which Alan Moore starts doing a an in-depth account of the Jack the Ripper killings with someone from the indie alternative side of the comics industry, like the writer of some of the biggest superhero comics of that moment, because this is yes, he was doing V for Vendetta and like things, like he was starting to make his mark in indie stuff, but at that point, like in the mid to late 80s, he was still primarily a superhero writer. And it was just like, and he went and did something that could only exist in could only have been incubated in a place like Taboo. And it was just like, this is interesting because it's an entire where are the corners of, where are the platforms within the comic book industry that where the creators of the modern moment are kind of talking to each other and writing work, not just for what's going to be the most successful ongoing, but are kind of in conversation with each other. And that was sort of the kernel of that. And so I started talking to my editor on Department of Truth, who is the former Steve Foxe, who used to edit, used to be the comic book editor at Paste Magazine. And Paste Magazine used to do these great write-ups of the best horror movies, best horror books, and all of that. And Steve was able to pull together, he and I, back and forth, we started talking about what we wanted this magazine to be. And we, and ultimately that's what happened. And this is the proof of the first issue that I have in hand. But yeah, we have a lot of incredible creators, and I reached out to a lot of friends for the first one, and then we have a lot of people who were more long shots that I started reaching out to for issues 2 and 3 and 4. And it's just we have people from the different corners of the comic book industry. And that was the real goal. So honestly, it's an experiment. It's an experiment it's also my first experiment in self-publishing. One thing that I didn't want to do was, I have a lot of respect for the crowdfunding model, but I think that there's something in it that doesn't appeal to me, which is the fact that when you make the sale, it's it's such delayed gratification. It can be 6 months to a year until you get something in hand. And I wanted something that was immediate gratification. So we did it all in secret and announced it on the day that it was available online. And it was free. You could pay what you want online for the digital edition there. You could pay nothing if you want to. You can throw us a few dollars if you want to. And honestly, one of the most exciting things has been that, I made the crazy decision right before launch that I was going to research how to do a print edition, and that we were going to do a limited run print edition of the first issue. And it was going to just be like, and it was an experiment. It was to see whether or not there was a demand. And the print edition sold out in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And that
congratulations on blowing Bleeding Cool up on that one, by the way.
And honestly, that proved to us right off the bat that it's like, okay, we need to sort of reconsider how we are publishing this, where it's like, I always want there to be the digital first angle, because at its core, I want this to be something not only for comic fans, but also comic creators to sort of be able to be in conversation with each other. And I don't want a barrier to entry to be a part of that conversation. But like, there is a demand for the physical version of this. And that is incredibly cool. And we're going to work towards that demand. So there's going to be, right now, the full print run of the first print run is sitting in my apartment right now in 11 boxes. I have a bunch of shipping material that's going to be arriving over the next couple of weeks, and then we're going to start sending them out in early September to everyone who bought it. And then the time that I would say that everyone should be sort of keeping their eyes open for news of how we're going to move forward with the whole RAZORBLADES project is October, because obviously October is, it's the horror month.
Yes.
So I think we're gonna have some there's gonna be some big announcements there, and we'll talk a bit about the really cool creators we've lined up for the project, and also how we plan on moving forward with the print edition through at least the first year of the project. So
yeah.
Stay tuned, but it's a lot of fun and it's a lot of work, and it's part of the only reason I was able to put any of this together is because there haven't been conventions this year. This is basically the thing that I was able to do, because if I was supposed to be in the UK 3 times this year, and I didn't get to go once. I have a bunch of friends there. I have a bunch of friends internationally. I have a bunch of friends in the US I only ever see at comic conventions. And it's just like, this project allows me to continue to work with all of them and continue to chat with all of them and fire off emails. And it's like, a lot of it is just an excuse to there's this social aspect, but it's a social aspect that, is also going to produce a horror comic book. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we brought up the creators. I put it up on screen there just to roll through, and it is a staggering roster of people. Just to pull that together is something else. When it comes to that first print run, it dropped. I believe it was on a Thursday, and I know this because I do hospital radio, as many regular viewers of this will know. And I basically was tweeting about RAZORBLADES, and I was up for getting my copy, at which point I had to go to hospital radio, and then came off hospital radio and found out it had gone completely. Yeah, I was gutted, absolutely gutted. So I'm glad to hear that there is a print edition on the way. So
yes.
Yeah, looking forward to that. This would have been, like you say, the kind of the project, and most of the books that we've been talking about, if not all, would have been something we would have been talking about at Comic-Cons, and that hurt when you turned around and said that you were going to be coming over to the UK a number of times. When it comes to comic conventions down the line, what can you see for yourself? Is it 2021, and how far into the year could you see yourself being comfortable about going to a comic convention again?
I mean, a lot of it depends on the scale of the convention. I could see, and it depends on so many factors. Right now, the internal calendar in my head is I don't believe everything that in the first half of the year is purely hypothetical, but I'm starting to be okay, second half of the year, I'm going to start loosely sketching out plans in the back of my head. Like, I am hoping that I do get to attend, Thought Bubble 2021. That is that was one of the trips I was going to be taking over. And I was excited. This year was going to be my first year at Thought Bubble. But alas.
Yes.
And it was going to be perfect too, because it was going to give me a chance to see Martin right after the launch of Department of Truth and all of this stuff. And see Michael for the Wind, it was going to be the release of the Wind collection. Best laid plans.
Indeed.
But honestly, I would say the early conventions of next year, I'm going to be a little more skeptical of. I think it's more likely that I would start to consider doing store signings before I'd start to consider, bigger things. And then, I've also just been making sure that I can, I've been doing more private signings through Scott's Collectibles and stuff like that, to just make sure that, people who want their book signed can still have an outlet that they can make that happen. But yeah.
Yeah, I think, a couple of creators I spoke to basically said, you show me a vaccine and then we'll start talking. And
yeah,
I can kind of understand that. But I mean, the reason why I brought it up is purely because the timetable that the calendar you've put yourself together, in the books that you've got coming out, I often wonder about creatives actually being able to make it to a Comic-Con when they've got this much on their plate. And you have got some incredible projects coming down for so many people in so many different tiers and so many different audiences. You're covering quite the gamut, and it's great to read the books. Because of the various styles, that's one thing. But it's such a high quality, and we're just bloody enjoying reading your books. It really is amazing.
Well, I really appreciate it.
We're going to finish on this question. This is from Into the Blue Mister. We're going to need to... Oh, yeah, this is something he does regular, by the way. Going to need to give James to point out some of the art behind him so we can give him a nerd background rating. So I'm going to solo your image. If you can just sort of go through...
Let me close that for you first.
If you need to cover the whiteboard as well, I don't know.
Oh no! Honestly, everything on that whiteboard is so out of date. Because deadlines are you can see the there's DC deadlines, Boom deadlines, Image deadlines, and it's all blank. I haven't filled that out in ages. All right, so
I'm loving the Krypton, but we'll come back to that. Wow, go on.
Oh yeah. So over to the left, and a bunch of these are ones that I got when I was going to conventions, right around when I started. I couldn't afford original art back then, so I would just acquire prints and then I would get them nicely framed to sort of spruce up my apartment and make me seem fancier than I am. But yeah, so I have there was a company, and I forget what their name is, and I'm sorry for that. But they were doing kind of Mondo style posters for different comic series for a while. So that top one is for The Woods.
Nice.
Directly beneath that, and then sort of next to that and down are two prints by Cliff Chang that he used to sell at conventions. Basically an Elektra print that's in the style of the Flashdance album cover, and then a Batgirl print in the style of the Purple Rain cover.
I know the Batgirl print, yeah.
Yeah. Directly above that was a print from 2010 from Sean Murphy's Wolverine Alphabet, which that hasn't been around in a while. Directly above that is an Annie Wu Venture Brothers print that I grabbed from her at a convention. Directly above is I
said Krypton. It's not, obviously. It's the Fortress of Solitude.
Exactly, and there's a little tiny Superman flying out of the fortress. But there was supposed to be a whole line of DC Comics landscape prints that Mondo was going to do, but I think this is the only one that ever came out. But I managed to get my hands on it, and I'm very happy about that. And then over here is the the Good Time Sloth from Memetic, one of my series. This was my mom got me this one. There was a USA Today. USA Today allows you to sort of get versions of prints of stories from their print editions and their digital editions. I don't think the story announcing me on Talon actually ran in the print edition. I think it was only in the digital, but it's like that my mom got me that, and I keep thinking like that's way too corny. I'm gonna like take it down, but it always goes back up when I shift offices.
This is what because you know damn well that mums will find out, because this is what mums do. They have a radar for this stuff. They know they know when that'll come down. Okay.
And then there's Kevin Wada Pokemon print, and then right above that was a special print for the Love is Love comics anthology. The release party for it at Golden Apple in January 2017, and so that's the Raphael Albuquerque piece from inside that.
Wow.
But here, let me while I'm showing.
That looks like Exhibit A in the murder trial. That was...
Oh yeah. No, and so this is a piece of original art from RAZORBLADES, from my partner Sam Johns and Danny. And you can see Danny actually did embroidery on the physical, physical art pages. Here's one that I just got. I got a page from Gary Frank from the Green Lantern 80th, a story I did about Alan Scott. So I was very happy about that. And then I wanted to show off, if I can, there it is. For the person who asked about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
This is where you're now juggling.
Oh, yeah. But, so you can see, that's the piece. And you can see, like, down here, this is all Freddie Williams, but then these for the, that's actual Kevin Eastman art. And then he sent me this nice note along with it. So this all needs to get framed and quick. And then there's a bunch of other original art that I need to get framed right there. But it's my art wall full of original art is out in the living room. But it's not, the apartment's like a little bit in disarray. So I will. That'll have to be another time.
How much does your partner get to choose what goes up on the walls as well?
Oh, I mean, like, definitely, the benefit is we're both, like, comics people. So we're, like, our tastes sort of go between the different corners, but it's like, what we want is something, like, that is both classy and geeky all at the same time. So, like, we come to a happy medium.
Fair enough. Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. I'm certainly into the blue, mister. I mean, like myself, was with a huge grin on my face looking at that little lot. That was incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. But listen, I wanted to say thank you very much indeed for coming on and joining and talking to us for a couple of hours about your projects. I mean, it's like I said, I could carry on going because there's just so much stuff that you've got going on. But there's, like I say, there's so much layers to the stuff that you're doing, and it's just a joy to unpeel it, unpack it, and enjoy it. And if I haven't said it enough already, everybody watching, Department of Truth, get that book in your pull list. Get it ordered, because you do not want to sleep on this book. It's one hell of a ride, and I really am looking forward to seeing where it goes. If anything, I'm just looking also just to seeing what else Martin Simmonds comes up with, because it's, like I say, career best stuff. Absolutely gorgeous to see. Yeah. There we go. Right. So you've had your 2 hours breather. Back to work. Get back to doing what you do. James, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Where is the best place for people to follow what you are doing in terms of books? Is it your Twitter? Is it Instagram, Facebook? Where's the best place to point people?
I would say Twitter, and while you're on my Twitter, if you follow the link right under that, you can subscribe to my newsletter on Substack, and that is the best way to get all the news about what I am working on. I should have enough. This past month has been a bit of a whirlwind. So since the announcement of RAZORBLADES, I haven't put out. I didn't put one out in August. But there should be one coming in early September to sort of talk, in this next week to do the help along the final push for Department of Truth. So stay tuned. Lots of big, exciting news to come.
Excellent stuff. James, again, thank you very much indeed for your company, and hopefully we'll see you at a convention down the line. Yeah, let's get you over to the UK. Let's see you over here, sir.
Absolutely.
Take care and enjoy the rest of your Sunday, sir.
All right, you too. Have a good one.
Take care. Thank you. Wow. Thank you very much indeed to James for that. Like I say, we usually try and keep this to a nice hour or so, but that was certainly something to a hell of a meal to dive into. It was great to talk to him. Thank you very much indeed. Right. At this point, I'm going to dial in with a couple of stories when it comes to what's happening. When it comes to some conventions that are happening and also some updates. So let's very quickly cover those because obviously we have run way over time. But let's quickly dive into some stuff that is currently on the cards. Certainly with the news about DC Fandom, which got a lot of people's attention. You watched it, you saw it, you enjoyed it, and especially considering that we have heard word about just how many people enjoyed it. 22 million people over the course. 220 million people over 20. Was it 22 million people over 220 countries? That was it. We have ourselves the second part, which is going to be happening in 2 weeks' time. 12 days to go, or just under 13 days to go. We have ourselves all the updates when it comes to the schedule and all the various individual rooms that we've got coming. Yes, they're going to be happening. Watchverse, Insiderverse, Uverse, Hall of Heroes, Funverse and Kidverse. We have yet to find out exactly what's happening with Hall of Heroes, or whether it's just going to be, it's just going to be a straightforward replay of what we saw on the August thing, but yet to find out exactly how that's going to play out. But so many people watching that stream, and it kind of put everything I said into a little bit of a cocked hat. I turned around and said that I wasn't convinced by DC Fandom. I felt it was far too passive, that it was effectively just a live stream. Someone hit play, and for 24 hours it just went out live. I felt that there was no direct correlation. I didn't feel there was a connection with an audience. And it speaks volumes that I've been seeing, like live streams with Kevin Smith and Mark Bernard, and turning around saying this could be the future of what we see with DC going forward. And indeed, other companies could take the DC Fandom model and roll with it. I really sincerely hope that they don't. There needs to be more dialogue. There needs to be a real live connection with their audience. And in this regard, we'll see how that goes with the second run. We'll see what happens in 2 weeks' time, because at the end of the day, I'm hoping that they adapt, they evolve, and they have more of a live interaction. Otherwise, for me, it's a great info dump, and it was great for 24 hours to see those trailers and have that conversation. But any conversation that took about DC Fandom directly after on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it was about the trailers. It wasn't about the interaction. It wasn't about the actual event. Maybe it's safe to say I'm severely outvoted. It's me against 22 million people that watched that particular effort. So that's DC Fandom. The other events that have been moving forward in a digital nature, we've got WhoCon, which has announced that they are going to be moving to a digital event. This is an event that would have been happening in San Diego relatively soon, actually, over the course of in October, but it's been moved now to a digital format. They have announced the dates for next year. 4 Point Sheraton for October 8th to the 10th, 2021. but they have announced that it is going to a virtual convention. Details on the way. I think this is pretty much what we're going to be seeing from a lot of conventions down the line. There's just so many events that are going to be moving to the digital space, but they have to get it right for myself to still create that sense of community. And if there's one convention that needs that, it's WhoCon, because you cannot just put something up and it's one of the most interactive events that I've seen out on the in the circuit. It is a full-blown community that comes to gather. If anything, while you have content at WhoCon, that's not what people talk about. They talk about the actual friends that they make, the cosplayers they see. It's going to be the kind of the sense of model about what you need to do for a virtual convention. But there we go. Next up on my agenda is the cancellation of Toy Fair New York, another convention which has decided to postpone in the landscape of Corona and pandemic developments in Texas. The Toy Fair Dallas and Toy Fair New York postponed. This is a big one because while we talk about comics and we talk about Comic-Cons postponing, we still have to recognise that it's still a small percentage of the entertainment market. When a film festival cancels, when a game festival cancels, or game convention cancels, when Toy Fair cancels, this is a big thing. We're talking so much money, we're talking so much investment and a marketplace which just goes all over. The fact that they are taking this to a virtual space, this is going to be interesting because retailers like to have that tactile feel. They like to see what they're going to be selling and putting up on the shelves. To actually then have to rely on a virtual space, I can't quite see how it's going to work. But that's how Toy Fair Dallas and Toy Fair New York have moved on and postponing both shows to 2021. It kind of also speaks to what we can all enjoy in terms of our own content, the things that we get into, the toys that we buy and collectibles that we get. Could there be a big hole in that particular market purely because retailers can't get the sense of the items that they would like to order? And would that be a case of the big names stay on top and a lot of smaller retailers kind of get lost by the wayside because they haven't got the platform, they haven't got the stage to put their merchandise forward on, which Toy Fair New York would afford them. We'll see. At the end of the day, I think we'll all learn about the after effects of pandemic and Corona, not in 2020. We'll learn about the general lay of the land way down the line and for next year. Okay, other stories I want to very quickly touch on. We have ourselves the Ringo Awards, the Mike Ringo Comic Book Industry Awards. The nominations have gone out, and now it is a case for the fans and pros to come together. If you want to go to ringooawards.com and basically stake your claim, put your flag in the ground and show your support of some truly incredible artists and writers and creators. We have ourselves a whole bunch of people that are represented, including the person we've just been speaking to, John Tynion fourth. Sorry, I always get that wrong. Something is Killing the Children is nominated for Best Series for Boom Studios. But I'm fully expecting his books to be more represented next year because there's just so many that he's got on the cards. But some incredible talent's been represented in all the categories. So for the likes of Best Writer, Drew Edwards, Jeff Lemire, Mark Russell, Erica Schultz, Mariko Tamaki. The great thing about these particular awards are they really do show some cracking representation of diversity of the creators. Best artist or penciler, Chris Campnier, Colin Doran, Sanford Green, Rosemary Valerio O'Connell, Mariana Pacosta. it really does represent some incredible talent across the board, from the likes of Spencer and Locke for Action Labs. So you've got your smaller independent creators and publishers, all the way up to your big boys, your DCs and your Dark Horses and your Image Comics. So do go check the link out, ringoawards.com, because it allows you the chance to support and nominate and put forward people who have been exceptional in 2019-2020. Right, I think that's pretty much me, done and done. As Dan Berry is saying, that was a long hour, wasn't it just? But there was so much to see and so much to talk about when it comes to James's work. By Department of Truth. Something tells me this is going to be one of the next great comics. It's one of those that I think we're going to be talking about down the line. I didn't want to bring it up because you could go conspiracy theory when it comes to religion, which, like I say, is your touch blue paper. Yes, you have the likes of Christianity and other cults that down the line, but sorry, sorry, that was me misspeaking. I do apologise. Scientology and other cults, but then you could also deal about the fact that you could say that Christianity is the greatest example of willing something into reality, and something which will then shape and the landscape of culture and politics and every aspect of life. It's one of the greatest examples of what Department of Truth is all about. But then, as James was talking about, the fact that the Department of Truth itself is a government oversight, and where does that particular power stop and lie? It's a fascinating book, and I would heartily recommend you checking it out. Right, thank you very much indeed for joining us. The sun has gone down. I'm now going to get myself something to eat. Don't forget, this particular podcast, the audio version, will be going up on SoundCloud tomorrow at midday GMT, as soon as I've edited everything down. I've also got ourselves the full replay of this video will be going up on YouTube and Facebook as of Wednesday for everybody else to watch. But for yourself that are watching this now, my Patreon supporters, I appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Spread the word. Let's get more people involved watching this on the Patreon page. Only costs $2, and I think today you've definitely got your money's worth, because this was a hell of a show. We've got ourselves some great talent that's going to be talking to us shortly. Let's see if I can just bring this up, considering that I don't think I can. I don't know if it'll come up. Bear with me a second. Let's see if I can find the file I wanted to show you, because my word, have we got ourselves some great guests coming up very shortly indeed over the course of the coming weeks and months. Yes, we are going to be talking to Scotty Young in November. That has been on the cards for a while, and yeah, very much looking forward to talking to him. But here's the lineup as we are for now. So we spoke to James today. We've got Stephen Mooney and Declan Shalvey talking tomorrow, talking about their Kickstarter. Stephen is the one that's actually created it. Declan's done the backup story inside. 2 days to go on this Kickstarter, so do tune in, if anything, just so you can get a sense of what this project's about. And you never know, it may be the show that kind of pushes them over the edge. Saturday, 5th of September, we've got our incidental episode with Mike Hawthorne. Don't know too much about him, so I'm looking forward to talking to him and finding out more about his work. Cullen Bunn on Sunday the 6th of September. Sunday the 13th, we've got Julie Tate from the Lakes Festival. Sunday the 20th, we've got That Texas Blood creative team, Chris Condon and Jacob Phillips. And I'm really looking forward to Sunday the 27th of September. Elsa Chatirier is going to be joining us. She is an incredible artist, and I'm looking forward to hearing about her European perspective of pandemic and also her creative process. Some brilliant guests coming up, and I'm looking forward to talking to one and all. Take care. Thank you very much indeed. Hope you've enjoyed the show for today. It's been an epic one, and I think it's been a hell of a ride. Take care. See you tomorrow for our incidental episode of Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.